go a little bit out of order and do a policy change just real quick, if you don't mind, or update.
So basically, I mean, I'd have it on the screen if I could get anything to work, but unfortunately I'm having the worst luck. But basically there's a proposed amendment to the notification area for conditional use permits that will require a development plan. So items that are either adding something that would trigger a development plan, things such as parking, new buildings, structures for commercial use, industrial use, that type of thing. If it requires a conditional use such as for outdoor storage, it would only have the adjoining parcels notification window, which on the graphic there I believe is like not that many parcels, versus if it was a development plan and it had to go to the planning commission. If you're outside of this urban service area, it's a 1,000-foot notification window. So pretty much what we're looking to do with this amendment is cement staff policy, and instead of it just being adjoining, if we flag it, or if there's something that would lead to due cause that would be indicative of it becoming a minor development plan requiring staff review, or a major development plan requiring planning commission review, it's pretty much just saying we're going to match up the notification areas as it should be, so that when people are coming to meetings, they're not asking about what the use is going to be approved when it's already being addressed at this meeting or any of the other boards of adjustment. So pretty much I'm entertaining an idea for that one, so I'll leave that to you guys if that's clear. Thank you, Jay.
Any questions for Elise on this?
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask one. In other words, we're going to match the notice requirements here on things that would otherwise require certain types of notice for development plans and the like, if they were to go there.
Yes.
If they don't require that, we're leaving the notice the same as it's been.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think
Certain
that's a good
conditional use
idea.
permits, dimensional variances for like commercial building additions, that type of thing, where it's going to, approval of something on this level will result in some type of development plan being filed with our office. We're going to just expand the notification area preemptively so that we tell everybody, and then if no one cares, no one cares. But at least we told everybody. And I'll have to send more mail and get more paper cuts on the second Thursday of every month. But like, that's fine by me. I'll take that hit in order for this to not be a problem anymore.
I think it's important for transparency, because we've had that issue before, so
Right.
I'm all for it. I guess we can make a motion to adopt this amendment if we so choose to. Any other questions for Elise? I'll make the motion to adopt the amendment that Elise has laid out for the notification policy.
Second.
Rachel seconds the motion. Any questions or comments? All in favor by saying aye.
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 All opposed by the same sign. There are none. Motion carries.
And I'll need a copy of that for the minute.
Yes.
All right, we'll go ahead and hear our first item this evening is S-2022-38. Douglas Waller requesting a variance. Elise?
Thank you. So this is a variance request to the side yard setback, specifically on the north side, from 50 feet to 20 feet for home construction at the property address 4608 Owenton Road. It is an A1 agriculturally zoned property, and A1 areas, as all the applicants tonight will be, with the site acreage of about 5.24 acres. Since some of these areas get kind of weird, I've included some more details just on site proximity. So it's directly access off of Owenton Road, in between the intersections of Bonds Pike and Sharp Road. So just for general idea and everything. Staff does recommend approval of the variance request. So this is an aerial shot of the property. So you can see it's pretty narrow. I have a picture here depicting the different widths at any given point. For general understanding, when we're establishing a build line, it needs to be 250 feet wide, which is really only available at the center location, where it is about 251. And even then, that might not be the most accurate measurement. This is with aerial PVA measurements. So no matter really what you're doing on the site, given the narrowness, there's really no constructible area, because that's where we established the build line. So it would be, for that little piece that's 250 feet wider or more, that would be where you would be able to legally build. So any new construction, any accessory structures, home structures, such as the one that we're seeing right now, is going to require a variance to allow for them to build in that area that is otherwise not denoted. So what they're looking to do is the area kind of marked by the existing mobile home. They're looking to remove it, and they're looking to relocate it, re-angle it, and position it, but use the same facilities, the same electrical, water, septic connections, just with the whole new, new residents out of that area. And so, based on that, and the topographical comment, which I didn't really make, but it is kind of above that north-south dividing line, so there's prone to more topographical variation, and all that other stuff. Staff does believe that there are findings that are appropriate to KRS 100.243, and therefore recommends approval of the variance request, subject to the 3 conditions of approval, specifically that they adhere to all other zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations, they comply with all regulations from federal, state, and local regulations, and that they obtain a building permit from building inspection.
At least just a general question. On the application, it shows 30 feet from side to the topography. You've got 20 feet.
Oh. I may be misspeaking. The,
We just want to make sure.
I believe the applicant is,
Is the applicant here for this?
yes.
All right.
I'm here to speak on that.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Can you join us for a moment?
Yes.
Will, please?
I'm having.
Will you state your name for us too, please?
My name is Joyce Sims. I live at the adjoining property beside him.
Okay.
I don't want this variance to go through due to safety reasons of the properties we're going to be building right beside him and mowing and things like that. I lived at Cumberland, on Cumberland Drive in Georgetown. We were constantly, people mowing yards, hitting our house with rocks and stuff. At 50 foot, that'd be 100 foot between me and him. That most likely would not happen. We moved out here 18 years ago to get away from 20 foot. So that's the reason why we don't.
Excuse me, did you say where your house will be or where your house is?
No, he's building,
But your house is already there.
my house has been there for
Okay, that's all right.
30 years.
Very good.
But we're getting ready to build within the next couple of years. We're gonna stay the 50 foot away because we don't want somebody on top of us.
All right. So you're not here speaking on his behalf?
Not his behalf, I'm gonna hear it
All right,
against.
I was a little confused.
Okay, I'm
All
sorry.
right, that's all right.
The measurement may be a failure of my interpretation of the email from him, which is included in the application stuff. Specifically, they put that it'll be 30 foot from north side due to topography, rock, and the location of utilities on sites and existing driveways. So,
They're reducing it 20 foot to 30 foot.
yes, I misinterpreted that. So I apologize for misconstruing that information. And may address some of your concerns. It may not 10 feet, 10 feet to a rock of airborne is really not too much, but it may mitigate some things. In the grand scheme, it may be better, maybe.
So it's currently
Mr.
at
Chairman.
50 foot now.
I believe so.
That's why we
I
would
would not know entirely.
That's why we would like to keep it 50 foot. I mean, I'm gonna abide by that just because I don't want to be on top of somebody else.
Understood.
Could we ask Mr. Sims, did you say?
Yes, sir.
Could we ask Mr. Sims what he thinks about other locations on the applicant's property? What do you think about the need to move it around because of topography or some other reason? Or is there no reason to move it? It could easily be 50 feet.
It can easily be 50 foot unless he's gonna build a 200 foot wide house. Because if I'm not mistaken, there's 251 feet in there. So you'd have 50 and 51, and you'd have 100 foot in between the two to build this structure.
All right, but you're saying then that there are no drop-offs, no wetlands, no
No.
other reasons for this house to be that close to the property line?
No. I've got, which one is mine here?
It's, I believe.
I've got this property. This was,
So it'll actually be further from your home. It'll be closer on the north side. So
Moving away from.
it'll be further away from you. It'll actually be up here. It won't be down here by where your residence is, so it won't be in that. It'll be even further away.
well,
than 50 feet.
this is the only place there is that was my concern. People that owned it before me started digging that out to build a house, but they owned all that property in there, and that been subdivided. So we have to fill that hole up, which somebody started digging before I owned it. And so now, that's the reason why we're trying to keep it, at least 50 foot from the property line.
But the house will be further from your house.
He's actually gonna do you a favor.
Okay, let's start over. So the property line where his is, they used to belong to our property. And then eventually someone at the Smallwoods, they split it up because there was like 12 acres there. And then later on, Billy Powell owned it. He sold it to Doug Waller. And then we've been living there for 18 years. And had planned on building a house sooner. There's a hole there where two property owners before us, we're the third. They were planning on building the house there where the hoe is. But the property owner, his wife got cancer and moved away. He left the hoe. Smallwoods filled it up with a bunch of all kinds of crap. Excuse my expression, but it is true. So eventually, this summer, we're going to clean it up, and we're going to build a house directly in front of it, about 20 feet from that hole. The meantime, the property line is right there. The Wallers are wanting to build 20 feet from the fence over, which will make them into our back door when we're going to put our house at. That's going to be an issue because I moved out of subdivision so I wouldn't have to deal with neighbors. He has all this property in behind him that he could push the old piece of old trailer he tore down this summer, move it out of the way, move all the other stuff away, and move it over 50 feet where it needs to be, out of our back door when we put our place there. Does that make it simple?
Which way are they going, Elise, for sure?
They're going north.
They're going the other way. They're moving
Yeah.
farther away from you.
Yeah.
I have a picture,
What's over?
and where it is not further away. Unless they've changed their mind recently, it is not further away.
Can we
They've
stop
already put a building on there. We already have all his old automobiles against our fence. We have all this stuff on us all of a sudden. It's like we're being invaded.
Couple of things. Can you state your name since you took over the
I'm
conversation?
Teresa Sims, this is
All right.
Joey Sims.
All right.
And do you swear affirm what you're saying is the truth?
I do.
To the best of your information, please. Thank you.
God is my witness.
Yeah, but your property is on the north side, or you believe that their proposal is on the south
This
side?
is where he wants to build. Right here. This is our property line. This is the hole where we're talking about. Here's where we want to build. This is what we live in right here. This is the property where they're at right here. It is closer than it looks on here.
But it's on the south side next to you, it's not on the north side away from you, at least that's what you understood.
Yeah, because he's already graded everything off, and he's only 20 foot from our property.
So
It's
he's
pretty much on top
already
of the
graded
city.
it all.
He's
Yeah.
graded off, yeah.
This is the hole he's talking about. They're moving the other way according to this picture.
We can
Away.
consider postponing for clarification. We can do a tentative.
Did you draw this square?
No, that's
They
me.
draw. So
That's
they
me.
drew it on the opposite
It's not
side.
my
This is
handwriting.
the hole. This is the Sims's, and they've drawn it to the other side, the right side.
Yes. At least how that appears. We can, if there's
the hole.
You want to see?
confusion with clarity, we
Actually, I
can
would.
consider postponing or.
I've had
continuing
pictures. I
to
took
the next
pictures.
meeting.
I'm curious.
This is where, full there, they want to go.
So
to the
this is
opposite side.
our property.
They're going to want to build right here. Yeah, so they're moving.
No, here's our fence right here. They're building right there.
Not from your side.
Not right from the fence.
See, they're saying they're building right here.
Yeah, it's closer than it looks.
You're over here, so they have gone the other way opposite you.
So this is the north is us.
It's closer than
Getting
it looks.
closer than.
Who did you say that years and years ago?
We owned, see, the Smallwoods owned it before us. The gentleman, the couple before them, I don't know.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Is it close to Jamie Hampton's farm?
Do you know where Lisa Wright lives?
Yeah.
Right across the road. Yeah, and Tommy's right there. And then we're across the road, which is our grandchildren. And then the Doug Waller's right there in the red house. Well, the lot that they are on used to belong to our family. Okay.
You can approve it as is now.
Yeah.
You can approve it as is, because you understand it's on the road.
Yeah, this is even better clear. I've got more pictures. There's what's been great
I
about
got
it.
a question to ask.
Yes,
Is
sir.
Waller's familiar with you being here?
Pardon?
Are Waller's familiar that you're gonna be addicted to this?
We don't know.
No, we haven't talked to
They
them.
haven't came and talked to us about anything. I wish they would have. We'd probably saved them some time, you know.
All right, let's do this. I think before this goes down a rabbit hole that we can't get back. I'm gonna recommend that we postpone this until the, what is it, October?
It'll be
Early
November 1st.
Yeah, there's
I
too
don't
much
know.
confusion on our part. At least there's too much confusion on our
I
part.
understand.
So we need to narrow down the parameters of
Yes,
what's going
I will
on.
reach out to the applicant. I was hoping for more clarification of the immediate
Yeah,
attendance.
so let's postpone it to the November meeting. My recommendation is to postpone it.
Are you doing that as chair, or are you making a motion?
Actually, I'm gonna do that as chair.
All right.
So we'll postpone that till November.
Okay.
Thank you.
And
Sorry you
get
had
more
to come up
visual
with that.
pictures of
That's
it.
all right.
Appreciate you guys' time.
Good job.
All right. Moving on, next application, S-2022-39, Kayla, and I'm gonna say Addis Remick, is that correct?
Close.
Close? Addis, okay, I was
It
close,
is-
I'm from East Kentucky, it was awful close for me.
We're very proud of you.
All right, there you go.
So this is another variance request to the rear yard setback from 100 feet to 50 feet for construction of an accessory structure located at the property address 120 Rocky Waters Way, is part of the December Estates Hidden Creek Estates cluster development. So it is a 1.75 acre parcel, but it is zoned A1 agricultural. It's accessed nearest off of Ironworks. It's on the south, kind of west side-ish of the county. Staff does recommend approval of it. This is our only aerial shot of their property. It's a newer built home in that area, so unfortunately I don't have anything newer with a home site on it, but this is the lot. This is the topographical variation of the site. It was stated by the applicant and included as a graphic that I will get to shortly, just on what the existing layout of the site is, so I just wanted to include that. This is when it was platted. So the item identified with this P here is the primary lateral field for the septic system, and then the repair lateral field is perpendicular, or is parallel to the rear property line and the tree preservation easement that was installed as part of this cluster development. So both of these areas we're recommending that they stay out of, just that general area if something goes wrong and things hit the fan, I don't want to swear, but if things hit the fan, we want to be able to clear that up and through as quickly and as effectively as possible, and construction on those, as well as easements, underground lines, those types of things we really recommend against. So those are two areas we're not really looking to kind of impact. You can see on this parcel that they do have that tree preservation easement, that 50-foot, and then the 50-foot build line from that point. This is a standard feature of our cluster lots whom have joined non-cluster lots. So any interior lots, they got a different story. Exterior lots, they have this extra tree preservation easement just to protect the agricultural nature beside it. This is the image submitted by the applicant. I have a full-size parcel, so if you really want a big picture, we have a nice 24 by 36 if y'all are really feeling it. But this is a shot of the home right now as it stands. So you can see the two septic locations, the primary and then the repair easement. The driveway as it stands is going along this north side with a kind of jut out for parking personal vehicles. The stars, which I think are very fun, are the trees that are currently existing on the site outside of the tree preservation easement. So I like the pizzazz, I give them style points. The structure that's proposed will be 40 foot by 24 feet wide. And the blue lines are all of the drainage lines, which is why I included that topographical layout here. So you can see that the drainage, I didn't really include anything that would have been actually beneficial, but drainage is going in this direction. And so given that they know the draining lines, they've requested that this barn be placed in this location and not any further out, so as to not negatively impact the site drainage from that agricultural property into the neighborhood, into the stormwater system that's existing, and kind of impact the neighborhood and create wet spots where there doesn't need to be any and impact the surrounding property owners. Those are what's cited by the applicant, and staff's generally agreeable. I mean, we don't want to negatively impact drainage on sites. We don't really want to be in tree preservation areas. We don't want to be on septic areas and septic lines, nor do we want to tear out mature trees or trees that will reach maturity in close succession or adolescent trees. So staff thinks it's reasonable that you have that location. It seems to be the most ideal based off of our review of considering all of the factors. It won't harm the easements, it won't harm mature trees, it won't mess with drainage patterns or site utilities. And staff does believe that it meets the findings requirement of, this is a smaller lot with some pretty heavy build lines and easements, and given circumstances, it may be reasonable to recommend approval of the variance to the rear yard setback from 100 to 50 feet for construction of an accessory structure, subject to our 3 conditions of approval that are typical for any variance requests. So,
Any questions for Elise?
Did you have any calls,
No.
neighbors or any concerns?
Nope.
I was out there today.
Mhm.
and it's a
Mr.
beautiful
Chairman, if I could
place.
ask one, why is there a 100-foot setback in the first place?
so it's the 100 feet total, so it's the 50 foot for the build line and 50 foot for the tree pres. So we would, in this one,
All right, but the
For-
tree preservation, that we don't usually require a 50-foot tree preservation line.
I mean, that was what was platted with the parcel.
Well,
Yeah.
I understand, but if that's not something we required, then maybe there's an HOA or something that they would have to get approval from. I mean, we have to approve it too because it's on our plat, but I mean, if it's not something we required,
Yeah.
then they're gonna have to go to whomever. I mean, for example, if KU required it, or if the
Yeah,
homeowners,
yeah.
whatever it might be. I just wanna make sure that they understand that.
Is there an HOA in that area?
There is, I've sent them all of this information, and I have an approval to build, and the material, the whole thing, for the whole thing. And then, I was actually gonna go get a permit for it, and then, I'm showing them where it was supposed to go, and he said, do this first. And it's going up. We stopped, nothing got touched, until we get an approval, then we're gonna proceed. The way, if I stay in the building.
You'd like to come up
Say,
just
can you
so
join us?
it'll be way easier.
Michael, state your name again and all that.
My name's Otis Ramich. The way we tried marking it out, if it stayed in the build square and where it's the top of the hill from the farm, all the water flows that route, and there's like a natural swell that goes to the front, which at the front, every driveway has the culverts, and there's like a big drain, and it carries all the water away. If I go forward, I'll have to elevate really high, about 4 feet. At that point, 1, it'll look really weird being that high from the house. And then 2, I'd have to then spend a lot of money getting drainage from the farm to flow to the right side. But then I believe it'll all flow towards my neighbor. Because if you look at, she had his lot pulled up on the other one, that showed the plat. Yeah. So my neighbor's got a house, and he's right on the edge of the build square, because he had to, because his septic 2 spots were only back here, primary and repair. So his house is really close. So if I go here, I'm gonna send all the water right at him. By me going back towards top of the hill, I still have to elevate, but we're gonna cut into it, and then everything will still flow naturally and not have to disrupt it. We didn't want to go any past back to 50 feet. They do have trees that were, when they first did the subdivision, they planted the pine trees back there to block off from the farm. And a couple of them are dying, but we're actually replacing all of them just to put them back because it looks uneven. But yeah, just kind of going up to that tree line to us makes the most sense.
Any questions? Thanks for the explanation.
No problem.
All right, Tommy makes a motion to approve considering staff recommendations.
Correct.
Motion has been made. Need a second?
I'll second it.
Yeah, Sonia seconds the motion. Any questions or comments? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same. There are none. Motion carries. Thank you, sir. You're welcome to stay with us if you'd like, or
I will send a follow-up letter tomorrow, and I'll send it to everybody, whomever is applicants for various items and everything, saying this is what you were not approved for, and with the conditions included, so.
So with that letter, I can get a permit?
Yep, I always joke that someone, you can come up and just wave it in their face and be like, I I got what I needed, let me have what I want.
Let us know how
But
that
no
works
one ever
out.
does that,
Yeah,
so, at least not that
I
I can
didn't
pull.
know
but I'm
everything I
really
needed on
sad.
this, and
Yeah.
she really walked us through and said, this is what I need to put together, and we looked at it, we had the plot drawn up, positioned the house where it is, and she's gonna have all the information for you guys.
No, we appreciate the detail.
The
Thank you so
details
much.
like the best, this is
Yeah,
definitely,
this is
the
fantastic.
Pizzazz
So
points
you're
are
welcome to stick
definitely
around for punishment.
another, very
Check out
impactful.
your-
All right, you too. All right, next application is S-2022-40. Looks like Kim Bragg. Elise?
This is a conditional use permit for secondary residence for, it would be for a family member. At the time, I was unsure if it was for a family member or farm worker, but I'll go into it more. But it will be for a family member at the property address 1236 Elk Lick Road. It is a 109-acre parcel off of Elk Lick between Stone Lane and Sadieville Roads in the northern eastern part of the county. Obviously zoned for agricultural use. Be really big surprise if it was like R3, but you know, it's not, so. This is an aerial shot of the property. I mean, it has a pretty, you can kind of see the light gray lines there, and this is zoomed in to where the home sites are existing, where all that topographical variation is. There is an existing old farm home on the property. They're looking to rehab the farm home, but since it's not really residable, construct a new home and then rehab the farm home and have it for some type of alternative use. We'll have to excuse them there, but, so this is kind of where they'll be using the same access point, and kind of, this is where it lies in the topographical drainage kind of situation here. This is the information submitted by the applicant on what the plan is. So this loop here is already existing. They're expanding, most likely. The existing farm home is there. They're looking for that new home placement, and then it'll be 50 feet from an existing barn, 55 feet from, which is 55 feet from an existing farm home, which is 104 feet from the road. So given the topographical layout of the property, you can really see that this is really kind of draining down towards and around that road area. There isn't really a lot of flat areas. Typically, we require some type of condition, and I put it as the possible condition 7. It's just something to note that I pulled it, but you could add it if you were feeling so inclined. Saying that the home site needs to be within or over 100 feet from any existing structures should the property be later subdivided. I've since discussed with the applicant, they have no intent to subdivide it, which usually isn't something that we're like, oh yeah, whatever. That sounds really mean. But usually it's not taken at that value, but I think given the topographical variation, I think it's really the most feasible flat area that would be reasonable to build a home site on. So I feel like it's appropriate to consider waiving that variance request, and then if they ever need to subdivide it, obviously they would come back for a variance and do the plat process, but at least right now, this seems to be the most optimal flat site that I've been presented on that site and property. And then, so, these are my findings, and this is my approval. Subject to the 6 conditions. Again, I have that 7th one there just as a kind of comment. The intent of putting it there was not to confuse, was just to show that like we did pull it, but if you do feel so inclined, we can consider re-adding it, and this would be the language we would use in that instance.
Any questions for Elise? Is the applicant here?
With our property owners.
Yeah, you will?
Yeah.
State your name, please.
My name's Chris Morgan.
Okay.
This is my wife Christina.
Anything you would like to share with us?
No, I think Elise covered it. It's really the only spot to put a house, and the current farmhouse is pretty derelict. It was owned by a hoarder shut-in. So we're just looking to build a house up there.
It's 1 story for future
Yeah.
plans to live there.
It is, however, like a 200-year-old log cabin, so we don't want to just tear it down. It seems like it has historic value.
Sure.
So.
There hasn't been any pre-construction or site
No,
preparation
there
or anything?
were 2 kind of like tough shed type buildings here, and we tore one down and moved the other from where the site was.
Same with the
pool and everything else has been,
Yeah,
the property itself is a lot cleaner than.
that's all we've been doing is cleaning out. What was, that barn at the bottom was a hazard. We had it torn down. So we've done stuff like that to clean it, but we haven't started construction yet.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anything else we need to discuss on this one?
You didn't have any concerns from neighbors or?
Nobody minds. Either that or they didn't tell me.
Okay.
So like, well,
We've been pretty happy with the job we're doing cleaning it out so far,
Yeah.
so I imagine they're all right.
Usually we have projects don't have a lot of like, dang, so bad you're cleaning that product, damn it. They don't mind.
All right, in that case, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve application S 2022-40, secondary single home residence at 1236 Elmwood Road, taking into account the staff recommendations.
Are we adding the 7th or keeping that?
Oh, as you stated, we're waiving the 7th.
Correct. That's the staff recommendation.
Staff recommendation, yes.
Motion has been made, taking staff recommendations in by Sonia. I need a second.
Second.
Second has been made by Rachel. Any questions or comments? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. There are none. Motion carries.
Thank you. So we'll be sending that letter out to you in your architect, you guys can, again, take that to the building inspector, take it in their faces and be like, I got it, I got it.
You're gonna be getting a letter from building.
I don't care. Dang, I feel like it'll be the most positive experience building inspections ever. She'll just be like, I got it, yes, it's not like coming in mad about something or other. But,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. We have, I believe, one more.
Yes, I'm gonna,
Application S 2022-41, Raymond and Jennifer Fields, requesting a conditional use permit. I'm assuming we're all
hey,
here for the same.
Jen, are you able to hear us pretty well? Are you having issues with that?
I can hear you pretty well, but wasn't able to hear the other.
You'll have to yell at the TV, I guess. Either that or just way too loud, which is
Yeah.
also probably not wrong.
No, I was going to say, we have no problem. All right.
Yeah, I feel like you could do it.
Yeah.
All right, then we'll get rolling. So this is a conditional use permit application to operate a private park and recreation area in order to facilitate events out of an existing structure, so an event venue. Located at the property address 1667 Burton Pike. It is a 38.5 acre parcel directly having access off of Burton Pike, zoned for agricultural uses. Take this out. So this is an aerial shot of the property. This square here is, at least according to Eagle View, which is the system that I pulled for this, is separate from the larger parcel here. So the home site up here is address 1677. This right here is 1667. And then the other home sites that are coming down all have other numbers that I'm already tempted fate with some dyslexia here. We're just gonna let it die. So a little bit of history on the site. It was owned by Bethel Fellowship, went to Victory Life Church, and is now being purchased by the Fieldses. They are looking to use a structure that is, this is a closer zoom in of the property. So the property in green is the home site, and the item in pink is the structure itself. This is a picture of it from the PVA system because the picture I took was shaky. So sorry guys, it's a little bit old, 2017, back in the days. So anyway, this was constructed on the site at some point under previous owners and has been used on and off as like a worship space or some type of activity space for small groups. Per the information provided by the applicant, they're looking to hold events at the absolute most weekly, but initially likely on a monthly basis to have no greater than 100 attendees and have activities that would kind of operate between the hours of 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. They intend to utilize the existing driveway on the property and would have no parking and would have some parking surrounding the structure. Just a little bit more details on the structure itself. It is about 3,700 square foot. It's 1 story with a walkout basement. Prior to any operations, if this is approved, you would need it to go through repairs and improvements to get up to ADA accessibility and standards, just out of policy. If you're operating it for a commercial use, it needs to be operating under Kentucky code for building inspection and production and everything like that. So they would also need to get a CO from the fire marshal prior to any operations on that site. I'm gonna go out of order in my thing here, but I'd like to talk. Oh, that's kind of dark there. I'd like to just talk a little bit about the access to the site. So I've depicted it here in various colors. I tried to pick bright enough colors that you could see it pretty clearly, but not too bright to where it's very hard to read. So I measured the distance from the access point off of Burton to, there's a fork where all 3 of the residences kind of meet and separate. So the property's address 1656. This is what I told you. This is 1663 and 1659 have kind of this junction point here where the remaining driveway continues towards the property address 1677. And then all the others kind of branch off from this point and they go to their respective home sites. So from that distance here to here is about 1,600 feet. From that junction point to around where the home or the structure is right now is about 425 feet. And then from the structure to the existing residence on that other side is about 500 feet. So there's a fair bit of driveway pattern coming up here. You can't really see it very far from your guys' angle, but there is a lot of variation here. And took a picture. So this is how it's winding up the property with this kind of ravine area here that would be very difficult to go through. It has some cutaways. You can't really see it here, but I mean, you can kind of see where this grade is right now, where the parking lot is approaching, in that kind of semi-drop situation to the actual structure itself. So it is a little bit weird. I'm so sorry. Like just cracked over like this trying to see the presentation. So it is pretty notable. There are some areas that you really, if you were to make like a hit a bump kind of weird, you would be in a precarious situation on that side of that cliff. We went out in our little Equinox. It is not a 4-wheel drive vehicle. Ben drove it, so we were fine. If I drove it, I don't think we would have made it. But so circumstances are not the best. There would need to be a lot of road repairs, a lot of pots, or a lot of holes being filled in that type of situation. I'd also just like to address that this is a shared driveway situation. If this were to be approved for operation, and it would have to go through a development plan for operation, staff would recommend that this needs to be, at least a portion of this needs to be brought up to county road standards, so specific pavement width, specific grade, specific approach, and then at some point, the general recommendation or the idea is to have it branch off, proceed on this shared property line with the Hostettlers, continue up here, up to this home site, and then loop down. So it would just create this kind of weird lasso situation around the property. It could address some issues with grading that are kind of seen in this picture here, kind of softening that grade, allowing for not only 4-wheel drive vehicles that are made for this environment, but also little sedans like mine that definitely couldn't make it, and our little Equinox that was struggling to make it the whole time. So I think that if we did approve this and there were operations and it did go for a development plan, we would want at least a portion of this paved to about, maybe there's about a pole here, maybe about 200 feet back, branching off, both of them proceeding as gravel, and then the one side being designated for that use only, not actually for the residences, so as to not have different lights coming in, the noise going through, people getting lost, specifically directioning people to go around and not interfering with the residences there. It's very exposed, there's not a lot of trees, so it's a big thing there. Yes?
Just a question, because there's a lot of questions that I have
That's
about
perfect.
this. Okay, so let's just stop for a minute. Emergency egress, okay, out of this entrance and egress.
Yes.
Emergency vehicles, ambulances, things like that, going one way in and out is not feasible currently, is that right?
It is not reasonable to expect them to do that, to approach at that level of grade would be very concerning. That's why the alternative route may provide some way to kind of weave your way up and allow for emergency vehicles to get up to that site, it would add time, but like, emergency sites are already not very close, so.
That approval to get that cut in is going to take quite some time.
Correct.
And then you're gonna have to go with other neighbors, considerably the Hostettlers, to make sure that it's even feasible. Yeah, I'm as loud as I'm gonna get, to make sure it's even feasible to get down through on the other side. And there may be some concerns there about putting a secondary road in against the Hostettlers going up that bottom dwelling. So we don't even know if that's even feasible at this point, correct?
I mean, at this time, no. We can consider reaching out to the fire department to get a statement from someone in their office. I can work with Jim Kennedy, he's their assistant chief, and everything, and see if we can get a statement on the feasibility, what he would expect. We can meet him on site and kind of discuss further, if that's something as the board would like to pursue.
My background is in health and safety, so that's why this is coming out. Okay, so ADA compliance is obviously a big deal.
Correct.
Especially when you're having public events. Egress and entrance into for emergency vehicles is another big deal.
Correct.
Fire codes is another big deal. The sheer amount of, and again, this is not about funding. They can do whatever they want to do, okay, as far as funding goes. But the sheer amount of work that it's going to take in order to bring this up to a usability standpoint is massive. So my question is, before we go through this whole process, should we go ahead and reach out to the fire department and the building codes to say, okay, is this even feasible to do this?
I think that would be a reasonable expectation.
What do you think, Charles?
I'm not sure if you heard, sorry, I'm gonna just.
I just don't want to waste their
No,
funding.
I understand, but I'm not so sure that you're not, though, taking the obligation of the applicant and putting it on the board and staff. First off, I'm not sure why there's no recommendation for denial, because this seems to be incredibly unfeasible. So
We addressed that earlier.
we should not be the ones basically going out and doing investigations as to what might be needed. That needs to be the application filed, and this application is woefully inadequate. And again, I don't understand why there's not a recommendation for denial, period.
Well, that's the first piece.
And then, they can get some.
That one's on you.
They
All
can
right.
get some advice from staff as to some things they might need, but that's not what this board should be doing. This board should look at it and say, yeah, this can be done in that neighborhood without damage to public area, whatever. There's no way this can be done without just an incredible, I can't even imagine it. Plus, we've got, do I understand this right? There'd be 4 different properties served by a private drive? Well, you can't do that either.
That's why we would have it paved to that point.
Well, again, I don't know why, it's not
I don't know how that
recommended.
happened. We were trying to find
Well,
out.
there's several around the county, but again, that's another reason why this, not just recommend, it would have to be paved. And all this is just, all this is.
Yeah, you're going to have county maintenance. And so
We have turned down others that we have come before us.
That were far better
that
than
were a
this.
lot better than this.
Yeah.
And just the basic issues exist on this, and I went out there also in my car, went home and switched to a truck.
Yep.
And my husband and I went back out there, he said, come with me, come look. And he's like, what if we run into a car coming down? Like, well, we'd be backing our whole way out. It's just, I don't see how 100 people coming out of there at one time. Like you said, Charles, they should be telling us how it's going to work, not us figuring out how
That's right.
they can make it
That's
work.
right. This just simply is not an appropriate, and certainly not ready if it ever could be.
Okay, so.
I make a motion based upon the information we have to deny said application.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch all that.
Motion has been made to deny the application.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Tommy has made the motion. I'm going to go ahead and second the motion to deny the application. And my reasoning is I don't think we should ever have it to begin with. Okay? And that's the reasoning behind that. So the motion has been made and the motion has been seconded. Any questions or comments? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same. There are none. Motion carries. Any other business that we need to take care of?
Not at this time, since we did our last thing first.
All right. In that case, the meeting is adjourned at 10 till 6.
You did okay after all.
Yeah.